Okay, shall we stand and say the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So we are going to start out with a public hearing. So this is to discuss holding a district meeting on the 4th of October to increase the appropriation for the FY 23-24 budget by $252,166. And this is because the state of New Hampshire made additional adequacy funding available after the budget process was complete. And this means that in order for us to use this money, we have to change our appropriation. And that would be the purpose of the October 4th district meeting, if we decide to do that. Okay. Are there any comments or is there input from members of the public? Yes.
Yeah, just to explain before anybody makes a public comment, just a few ground rules. If you are in person and you'd like to make a public comment, I do have to bring you a microphone before you can make a public comment. That way we are live streaming, that can pick up in the live stream so people can hear you. If you are remote, obviously you can just speak. We have a speaker in the room and we can hear you in here once you make those comments. I'm going to need a first name, a last name, and a town of residence, along with your comment. And if you are virtual, there's a hand raise feature at the bottom of your screen. You press that. I can acknowledge you. If you're in person, obviously you can just raise your hand. I did put the actual warrant article up on the screen, along with the additional language. Just one point of clarification, that meeting would be on Monday the 2nd, not on the 4th. So
Thank you, June,
yes.
for the correction. Yes, Monday the 2nd.
Maybe
Okay.
over here, Jim.
I don't know, is somebody on the Zoom thing is speaking or?
No, you'll hear it right in the speaker right here if somebody's speaking. I'll bring you over a microphone in just a moment.
I don't think I need a microphone.
Well, I have to pick it up for the Zoom. So if you're speaking in this room, the people remotely can't hear you speak. And I guess as an additional just clarifier, this microphone isn't going to actually project you in this room. It's only going to pick you up for the digital part. So should you like?
So John, I guess I want some clarification. You had a budget and the budget got passed in March for the school. So now you have additional funds that are coming in from the state. Were you planning on those additional funds in your budget in March or no? Is this extra money? And what's going to be done with the extra money?
Could I get your name
Thank
real
you.
quick, ma'am?
Sandra Stewart, I'm treasurer for the town of Jaffrey. I live in Jaffrey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. No, this is additional money. It's true. It's above and beyond what was in our budget. And I think it's fair to say that we try to be cognizant of how much burden we're putting on the taxpayers. We eliminated quite a number of things from our budget proposal before we put it in, as well as reducing the amounts that we were going to ask for in several of our trust fund appropriations, specifically relating to facilities projects. That's why when the additional money was made available, we saw that as an opportunity to try to catch up on what is really a long list of facility needs that we carry over from year to year just because we don't feel we can ask the taxpayers for more. Ruben, I don't know if you'd like to address a little bit the specific uses for which we've talked about.
Yeah, that'd be good, I think. First of all, this school district is receiving over $300,000, is my understanding. And that because of the change in formula, we have the ability, if approved, to use 252,166 of that within the appropriation. So we would not be able to use all of that money. The thought process with what would we do with that money so that we're using it in a way that's helping the education system, the school, the community at the exact same time was that we have aging facilities. We have painting and flooring that we have to continue to do. Those are we have a variety of things that need to be done, but this money has to be used within a specific time frame prior to the end of June 2024. And there are only certain projects that can be done during a school year while kids are in session and so forth. And we have already both in Jaffrey and in Ringe at the elementary schools and then at this school, mostly at Ringe Memorial School and at this school, we have found that we have about $400,000 to $500,000 in some needed flooring and painting that could be done. And so 252,000 of that we would want to put forward into facilities for that purpose. It needs to be done at some point, whether it's done at another time frame or done now. The idea that we've seen with when we got grant funded for the HVAC systems, we were able to put the new HVAC systems into the two elementary schools using the ESSER funds. We were able to then piggyback off of that with the same company to get it done here, which has made a significant difference to the beginning of the school year and has taken all of our end of life equipment and made it all new, which is great, which was in our multi-year plan to do, but we were able to do it for a much lesser cost to the taxpayers because we were able to get it done so quickly, as opposed to if we went out right now to bid for that same exact project, we'd be spending so much more. And so the thought process, how that pertains to this is if we were able to do this work sooner than later, we are in a sense supporting our tax base by the work needs to be done. We're taking care of our facilities and we're doing it at a time when the prices might be less than say a year or two from now to do the exact same work. By no means would this accomplish everything, but it would accomplish, a few projects.
So none of this money is going to be returned to offset the taxes next year?
That's the question, actually. At hand right now, the board is taking input during this public hearing to see whether they want to continue going forward with having the next step,
The district meeting.
the district meeting on the 2nd of October. Some of the money that is received will end up going back automatically because we can't put it in the appropriation. I don't know how much that exactly was. Carrie, our chief financial officer over here, would be able to speak to that if that would be okay, John?
Yes, certainly.
So the difference between what we were provided by the state for the estimate inadequacy aid and what the funding formula changed along with some ADM numbers. Basically, the difference in what was estimated versus what we're getting is $302,028. But only $252,166 can be used to increase our appropriations.
So a $50,000 difference. So 50,000 will go back automatically to offset taxes because we wouldn't be allowed to touch that period anyway because it would be revenue that We could not. put
Right,
that-
it's revenue that's not a result of the funding formula changes. It's just revenue based on, usually it's a difference in ADM numbers between what we had estimated versus what the final.
ADM is
numbers.
average daily membership, student. It's coming to school. So if the money were used for a purpose, then no, it would not go back to offset taxes, but that's the question that's being talked about.
Yeah, and to be clear, that gets decided by the voters at the meeting, not the school board.
Right, the school board gets to choose to put it forward to the voters.
Right.
I think you'll find like most meetings like this one, there isn't gonna be a lot of people there when you have only 100 or so show up for the town meeting itself to vote on the budgets.
True.
Right.
Sandra, another element to this is that in order to meet some of these needs, if there is a unexpended fund balance at the end of the year, we have the option of going to that and after a public hearing, making a decision to spend money from that. It has the same impact on taxes, so that by doing this now, we feel like we can get it done. We hope at a better rate, a better cost, and, you know, perhaps avoid taking it from that expended balance. And thank you for coming here and for the question. Juno, are there other?
Just as a reminder to anybody in the online audience, or some of the newer people that have joined, we are in the middle of a public hearing relative to the warrant article that should be on your screen. And that the board is taking input on this. There's currently planned to be a meeting on October 2nd to, have a community town vote on this. If you'd like to weigh in on this in any way, shape, or form, now is your chance to do so. If you'd like to remotely, you can do so by using the hand raise feature at the bottom of your screen. That'll alert me that you'd like to speak. I can give you that ability. And then if before you speak, if you could just say first name, last name, and town of residence, please, and thank you.
While we're waiting to see if there are other comments from the public, are there comments or thoughts from the board? Charlie?
Yeah, I have a brief statement. Practicals on here. I'd like everyone to step back a minute and think. School board members are not hired or appointed. We are elected by our communities to represent them. We are supposed to provide oversight for our taxpayers. That said, taxpayers have given us $32 million to spend this year. This $252,000 represents an increase in our spending of 0.8%. A minuscule amount. We'll save that much through unpaid salaries and benefits for unfilled positions. I don't want to use taxpayer money to hold a special election to take more money away from them. I think we're being greedy at the expense of taxpayer goodwill, and I do not support having a special election.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
Nathan Flowers from Jaffrey. I just want to make a quick comment. I don't know if you have the numbers right now. Just to give to perspective to the taxpayers, if say even just this money if we're giving back to them any tax breaks, tell them what the numbers would be to say if it's just a $20 per person, just to show that if it is that, or even close to that, that if it's just a little bit, that it might not even be worth it to send it back to them. So just have those numbers to show that, oh, if we give this back to you, it's really not that much as it sounds, as $250,000 comparatively. So I'm not answering for that information right now, just more probably would be good for the special meeting.
Thank you, Nick. We have that information. Okay.
I have estimates, yes,
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
Yes.
because certain numbers have not been finalized yet, but if the if we moved forward without increasing the appropriations, the estimated tax rate for Jaffrey per thousand would be $16.94, and Ringe would be $15.95. If we increased our appropriations by the amount on the warrant article, the estimate rate for Jaffrey per thousand would be $17.18, and Ringe would be $16.13.
That's basically $1, correct?
Yeah.
Dollar increase for range.
No, no. Well,
How much per thousand?
$16.13 versus $15.95.
So it goes up
So-
more than $1.
18.
So if I
A
have a
lot
house.
less than $1. It's a
40
lot
cents.
less.
15
Sorry,
cents.
I want
15 cents, right?
Right.
Between 15, I think it's 15 cents for Ringe on, and then 22. Is it? Or 24 for Jaffrey?
It would be a difference of 23 cents for Jaffrey and 18 cents for
Okay.
Ringe,
Yep.
for Ringe.
And then just, if it would be okay, what would that mean for a $200,000 home?
I have
Never
it
get
based
double.
on $250,000 home.
Yeah.
So it would be $57.89 for Jaffrey and $44.63 would be the difference between the two.
So if homes are doubled that, then we double those numbers to 100 and 100, 114, 100. For a $500,000 home.
They put it that way, just as the opposite. They see that number, they think that, oh, I'm not getting good about it. Sorry.
Juno, do you have anybody else in the audience that's seeking to speak?
I'll give one final last call to the online audience. Again, if you'd like to make a public comment, use the hand raise feature at the bottom of your screen and we can acknowledge you that way.
I haven't seen anybody yet. Just,
Okay,
give that full disclosure.
yes, Christine.
What is the cost to the taxpayer for holding a public meeting? Approximately.
Juno, I don't know if you can help with part of that. I know some of those costs have probably already been incurred, so.
Yeah, just give me a moment. So there's advertising costs of the meeting, which it has already been noticed, both this meeting and the October meeting. So we wouldn't be able to recoup much from that, because we could only recall the upcoming papers. While I'm looking for this information, the other key things to think about would be my time for setting up and breaking down and being there for the meeting, so that you're looking at. Obviously, we hold a school board meeting after, but even if the meeting's only 30 minutes, you're talking a couple hours to set up and break down, so that's. We'll say 4 to 6 hours roughly of my time, any additional custodian time in terms of setting up chairs. The time that it would take for employees to drive around and properly post at physical locations. Looks like advertising for these two events comes in around.
That's great, Juno. It gives us a general sense of what the.
I mean, advertising's up over $800 for the entirety of the two events, so. There's that cost right there that's already been done, and again, we could recoup some of that if you're not holding, but That's most of it right there. And then it's people's time,
Okay.
adjourning time too, if we have to ask questions.
Add in another 50 for supervisor of the checklist.
Okay, any more comments from the board? Okay. I think, I'll just make a brief comment. I do think that it's important that we are conscious of the impact on our taxpayers. I think the community's been good to us, and we owe the same to our community. Having said that, we've seen a lot of things happen to our schools. They're old. And we've made the decision not to go forward with new school buildings, and I think we're all settled on that and accepting of that. And we've made major strides in improving these buildings so that they can serve us for a long time ahead. Some of the changes we've seen this year are remarkable. I look at the Rink Memorial School, and over the last 2 or 3 years, it's really improved a lot, both outside and inside. And I think we'll hear from our children quite a bit over the coming year as how much more comfortable it is there. And the same thing will be true of this building. So I think we're preparing for the future. And to me, that's part of being a representative of the people. Those of us here have spent a lot of hours trying to pay attention to what's happening to our schools, trying to figure out what the best improvements are that can be cost effective, but still keep these buildings functioning. Painting and flooring are important. And so I think that, for myself, it makes sense to go forward with these improvements, try and get them done during the school vacation times and during the winter, instead of trying to rush at the end of the year when the prices are probably going to be higher. And so I think it's a wise investment. And I also think that we have to decide when we get to the end of the year what to do about our unassigned fund balance, how much of that, if any, to spend. And to not accept this money from the state now and then to take it out at the end of the year from the unassigned fund balance, that I don't think that that's the way I would do it.
No, my only point is we've already got the money. This year we will have more than $252,000. All right, in unpaid salaries and benefits because of unfilled positions. It's there. So that's my only point.
Charlie, I asked those same questions today during the facility committee meeting, and it was pointed out that historically, the unassigned fund balance has been set aside for emergency purposes. And we know that with these aging, and in my short tenure as a school board member, I've seen many emergencies arise. Every year there's something, and to dip into that fund for something that's not an emergency, but clearly needs to be done. I mean, carpeting that's over 15 years old in, the library at RMS, those issues need to be addressed.
If you recall, last year we took money out of the
I know.
unassigned fund balance and then put it back in again.
Mhm.
Okay, and that was not for an emergency. So I absolutely agree it's there for an emergency. But I mean, how much do we want to take away from taxpayers to hold back? All right, and I think that even if it's $44 per family per room, I think that's something that we can afford. My opinion. So is there a motion?
Okay, so thank you for your thoughts and your comments. To everybody here, everybody who's spoken. And I think if there are no more comments, then it's time to close the public hearing. So,
I don't have anybody online, so.
all right.
I'd like to make a motion that we hold a public hearing on October 2nd to,
Well, I think what we do first is close this hearing.
Close the hearing and then we enter into public session and then a motion's made. Just like any other vote, what ends up happening is there's a, basically with a roll call vote that takes place and what would go on for information for people to know is that how many people voted for this or not vote for it, but recommend it.
Hmm.
And how many people do not recommend it from the board. Yes, Juna?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So the board has already made a motion to hold this October 2nd meeting. So you don't need to make a motion to hold it because that's already in place. The only motion would be to, if I'm correct, Gary, to recommend this article. Or to, if you're deciding not to hold the meeting, to rescind or to somehow cancel out the prior motion. But it's already on the books that you guys are holding this meeting, so we don't need that particular motion.
Okay, is that correct? Thank you, Jim. Okay, but we do need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay,
second that.
thank you, Christine, and thank you, Lisa.
And we do have Daisy remotely, so any motion that we make, we need a roll call vote.
Okay, very good. So roll call vote. Daisy, if you're there and can hear me, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Thank you. Chris,
Are we voting on?
But yeah, just to be clear, what are we voting on now to close those?
closing the public hearing.
Aye.
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Lisa? Okay, and I vote aye. Okay, so that closes the hearing. And now we're on to our meeting. All right. I guess we'll go to we've already done our Pledge of Allegiance. I don't think there's any.
We should.
Action taken as a result of the public
Yes.
hearing. Yeah.
So. Based on the discussion at the public hearing, are there any comments, suggestions, or motions that people would like to introduce?
Yes, I will make a motion that we move forward the warrant article.
Okay, Lisa, thank you.
So that's, you're recommending, is that, okay, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Is there any discussion on this? Any further discussion? Okay, then let's move to a roll call vote.
And again, this roll call vote is for the purpose of recommendation.
Recommending the warrant article, so this will appear on the warrant, as you can see right there, recommended by the school board, like we do with the standard
Mhm.
warrant for, February and March.
Yep. And the only other motion that would be made would be to not hold the meeting. But that's not the motion. This is just about having a roll call vote as to who recommends this during the already scheduled meeting.
Okay, is everybody clear on that? And Chris,
Yeah, aye.
Charlie,
No,
Christine,
Aye.
Lisa,
Yes.
Daisy,
No.
And I vote aye. Okay, thank you, everybody.
So is the recommendation? Is that 5-2?
4-2.
4-2, thank you.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda? We're now in the public meeting. Hearing no changes to the agenda.
I need the minutes removed
Okay,
from the August. I don't remember which date. The August 28th.
okay, Daisy, thank you. Okay, and then one other change to the agenda. Want to add to the resignations, the resignation of Angela LeBrecq as effective as of September 27th.
29th, I believe.
29th. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, Friday.
Friday the 29th. Okay. All right, very good. So those are our changes to the consent agenda. I don't think we need a motion on that. Is that right? And then we're on to the superintendent's report.
We skipped our public comment session.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you, Juno.
So just as a reminder to everybody, whether you're in person or remote, the best way to make a public comment would be to raise your hand. If you are remote, you can do so by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. I'm working on getting the public comment agenda up on the screen. It seems like it's going a little slow, but again, first name, last name, town of residence. If you are in person, I need you to hold a microphone. And if you are remote, again, I just need to give you the ability to speak. So. Having difficulties with that.
Are there any members of the public who are here who would like to make a comment?
And I also don't have anybody at the online audience. Just let everybody know. We hold a public comment session at the beginning and the end of each meeting. So there is one later on, should something come up in the meeting and you'd like to make a comment about that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Juno. And thank you for calling my attention to that. Having just had public comments during the hearing, I slipped right over it in the regular meeting. And so now, Ruben, we're back to you. I'm going to ask you for your report.
So we have a lot going on. The school year has recently begun and we are in full motion. Last week, we kicked off our negotiations with the Jaffrey Ringe Education Association, so the Teachers Association. And at that meeting, we just scheduled the rest of the negotiation session. So that will happen throughout the fall. And we hope that will be a collaborative process as we move forward, in which certainly our negotiations have been over the past many years. Talking about collaboration, we continue to enhance our Franklin Pierce University collaboration. So not only are we in our second year of the full-blown relationship that we have with the undergraduate program in the education department, and we have courses being offered here for Franklin Pierce students, and then they get to observe and work with our teachers here. We also have that at Jaffrey Grade School this year, and it's new collaboration space that they have created. And so last year, those courses were held at Ringe Memorial School, so it will go back and forth from year to year with being the elementary education program being the larger of the two programs, the other one being a smaller program here at the middle school and high school. And then also Franklin Pierce University this past Saturday held a clinic for our soccer teams, or mostly our middle school players were able to go. I have a picture of that. Hopefully we can show you that at some other point. We do need to check to make sure that we have permissions for all those learners before sending pictures out and publicizing and so forth. But the Franklin Pierce, the national championship team from last year came, both the girls team and the boys team sent representatives to work for about 2.5 hours with our learners here on our fields as a community partnership. And then in the evening, we were offered, or our students were offered to go with their families free of charge to the men's soccer game at 4 o'clock and then the women's soccer game at 7 o'clock. Because I was out of state at that time, I was not able to attend, so I need to get an update on how that went. But my understanding is that things went pretty well for this first time effort. Another collaboration that we have with a local institution, Keene State College. This is a long-standing collaboration we have. It's a leadership academy. Leadership Academy was designed here in 2018 to implemented in 2019 through 2020. And this is our third iteration of that, where we believe in our school district that a non-hierarchical approach to leadership is important for the future of our school district and the sustainability of any change efforts that we have. And so we work on building leadership in all individuals. And so this is a formal process where our teachers, should they choose, we do not choose for them, want to take courses. It's roughly half a master's degree. There are specific courses that Keene State already offers. We choose the ones we want. They're held here on campus. And we also do a little bit of a variation. We have say in the curriculum and also in the books and so forth of the projects being used, and their projects tie in with the work that they're already doing for our district. So, and we of course get it at a reduced cost as well. We don't pay the full price that they would normally pay if they were going to be taking courses there, but they still get credit for that, and should they choose, can take those courses and apply them to a master's degree over at the school, whether it be in curriculum instruction or whether it be a leadership program, what your more traditional program for like being a principal or something like that. We also have a nice collaboration starting up with our Birth Through 8 grant. At the end of last year, we were awarded a $165,000 grant that we applied for, a competitive grant within New Hampshire for doing some community work around the topic of helping our schools be a better community service for our communities more in the area of parents and children with children who are in the age of 0 to 8. And so things like opening up daycare, perhaps making affordable daycare, educating people so that they can be daycare providers. As we have been able to read in the New York Times and the Keene Sentinel, you listen to NPR right now, a lot of current conversation around the economic state within the state of New Hampshire, but also the nation, and how a lot of that is hinging upon quality childcare and affordable childcare for workers, and the expectation that there's a prediction that in the near future we're going to be losing more childcare workers. There's going to be more people who aren't going to be able to afford it, and then you'll lose other people in the workforce as well. It all has a reciprocal process. So this is about us brainstorming, bringing community together. We will on October 5th bring probably about 25 to 40 stakeholders together, service providers, teachers, community members, parents, to kick off some visioning as to what we might be able to do as a community. This might lead into a pilot program of sorts, just to collect some data, maybe be able to use for future grant funding, federal grant funding, or it's just something that we can take a look at and create something internally to Jaffrey and Ringe that we might be able to do something small, but impactful for our community for years to come and not have it cost a lot of money. So Interesting enough, one item that falls into that whole realm is our efforts this year in building and implementing a childcare center here, the little Oriole Center for the children of our staff members. There are lots of reasons why we put that together. Some of it has to do with educational reasons for our own high school students. Some of it has to do with retention of staff in a very, very competitive environment right now within education. Some of it's just doing the right thing. And it's not about just retaining staff, but also knowing that the staff have ease of mind that their kids are in a safe environment and that they don't have to run all over the place afterwards. So they're less stressed while they're working with our learners here in Jaffrey and Ringe. And of course, being able to fund it at a level that is covering our costs or nearly covering our costs. So it fits closer to what the average is that is recommended, being 7% of total income as opposed to what is normal out there, 15 to 20%. Or even in some cases more of people's income for childcare. Childcare is very expensive. And it's something that we need to stay focused on within our community. Now, I'm very proud to say that we are a very forward-thinking community. And evidence of that is the fact that within this grant, I've been asked to speak about this new program here, as well as our the work that we've been doing over the past 4 to 5 years now in our district, being one of a small group of schools having full day 4-year-old pre-K. We have the town of, we'll just say one of the Seacoast towns wants to come over here and visit and see our programming to see what they can do differently within their own community. And so the fact that Jaffrey Ringe is a trendsetter is important, but it's also important to note that we have some good data, some numbers in talking with our friends from Head Start and also knowing what we have within our school setting. We have a little bit of space still open for some kids if they move in, and we are seeing some building going on within the areas, or at least a promise to build new homes or workforce housing. We may see younger children move into the area, and we have capacity right now. But the beautiful part is we have capacity at Head Start by maybe a child or two, their capacity. We have capacity in that same level right now. And so that it seems as though everyone in these two towns who wants to have their child in that 4-year-old program, if their kids are eligible, they're able to get that type of programming for their children right now, whether it be at another local center or whether it be here. So that's something to be very proud of as a community. And I know that we have personal stories because I've been talking with parents who have found our efforts to be extremely impactful to their personal lives. Things happen in life and situations change, and we've been able to help them significantly with their own health and well-being and income as a result of having our programming like this. So that will be a discussion for later on in the budget season as grant funding is ending on some of that, but that's neat. We have more going on. So this week we have some CTE work. That's the Career and Technical Education programming. The architects are coming here and spending a couple of days at the school. They'll be talking with focus groups. We'll be getting the Route 202 committee back together again once we have some information relative to this, and we may even send out an invitation, a last-minute invitation, to see if anyone wants to come and be part of these focus groups. But it's really centered around less about the location of it and more about what the curriculum is going to look like, what the design might be, what's the culture of the school, finding out what what are the, I hate to say non-tangibles, but the other pieces of information that go into architectural design and work rather than just property and structures. So that's what the purpose is for these couple of days coming up, and then we'll have more to talk about afterwards. We've had incredible work that was, I think, discussed at the Education Committee this past week. I was unable to attend because I had to attend another meeting. But so I won't talk about what happened there or what was talked about there, except that I know that we did have a very successful grade 6 field trip, where, as you recall, we had a grant fund for to pay the price for all kids in grade 6 to go to Ferry Beach at the beginning of the year. 80%, roughly 80% of those individuals, which is a good number for a first time event, given the time frame that we had to advertise for this, went, and there are some really neat stories that came out of that. Certainly we'll have more conversations about the impact of that as we're collecting some data right now for the purpose of meeting the expectations of the grant, but also to make good choices for ourselves in the future. And I'll end it there because I'm sure there's some questions that you might have, and there may be other things that are talked about tonight.
Well, it was quite a rundown looking for things that the district is involved in. Are there any questions for Ruben? Do you have any?
I would just like to say that kudos to our superintendent for leading. We have in my opinion, a leading edge school district where people are looking at us to set examples for them. And I just want to offer the superintendent my congratulations and appreciation.
And if I may, I'd pass that along to our staff, because this is an amazing staff, amazing group of positional leaders, as well as just the leadership throughout the entire organization. Very forward thinking, and we've had several examples of really being agile over the last 2 to 3 years, pivoting when difficult situations have occurred to actually improve the system. That's not easy to do, and that takes a community. A community of people as educators, but also a community in the Rindge and Jaffrey taxpayers who are here, who have kids, and also people who don't have children in the system. We have a long way to go to keep on growing, but we are definitely heading in a nice direction.
Well, thank you, Charlie, for those comments, and of course, the clarifications.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Do we have any data about how our kindergartners are prepared or more prepared for school if they're coming out of a full day program? Because I know that before we really started our preschool, there was Mrs. Sawyer's preschool in Jaffrey, and there was Head Start. There were not many. I guess that I'll just say it that way. There were not many. So do we have any information on how kids are more prepared, especially the ones that are coming right from the district preschool program going right into kindergarten?
So we don't have quantitative information that you might want, like, for instance, like test scores and things of that nature that so many people would like to see. I think we have anecdotal information, more teacher perceptions of kids and their ability to be ready for school. So I do think that we see that. We certainly are catching some situations earlier than we normally would have. That doesn't necessarily translate into an obvious, wow, we had a person this year who was very dysregulated, in the following year they're not. It gives us that extra year to work with a learner to do a multi-year process. Obviously, the reason why we have this grant from birth to 8 is because the sooner you work with children or help parents work with children, or or a community to provide more for children, we're impacting their future. And so I think that we're following what the research is telling us to follow, and with the promise that we will get a return many years down the road with the investment. That the research out of California, which is, there's a fair amount, but 10 years ago, the RAND survey that talked about, I think it was over in that part of the country, every dollar you invest in early childhood quality, it doesn't matter, quality early childhood, you get $4 in return, basically, because of the impact it has long term. In New Hampshire, that's we don't get quite the return. I think Impact Monadnock a decade ago indicated the research and said it was like 1 to 2, but you're still getting, 100% back on your return, which is pretty great. It just takes some time. We're certainly building community at an earlier age, and that's important this day and age. And lots of literature on that. Belonging is a growing field of research right now. The importance of belonging in a community.
I'd just like to add that when we implemented pre-K, Susan and her team put together a survey of the kindergarten teachers, asking them things about pre-K preparedness for kindergarten versus non-pre-K, and talking about things like knowing colors and knowing numbers and those kind of things. And overwhelmingly, the teacher said that pre-K students were better prepared for kindergarten than non-pre-K students. So we, like Ruben says, it's missing the word right now, but anyway,
They're more available to learn.
we
Yep.
did do surveys for 2 years in a row, and we stopped doing them because we're doing great, so.
Awesome.
Yeah, if I could just comment too on some of the stuff that Ruben touched on, certainly that ferry beach trip to the ecology school, I think was, again, kudos to the staff for, pulling that together and, bringing back, I think, what was a tradition in the school, right? I think for a long time, that trip, and certainly happy to see that and looking forward to hearing the results, right? I think it was not only a great, experience for bonding and educationally, but of course, this, the grant money and the information that can be provided to see how our sixth graders are integrated together, right? I know that was the main goal there. And I think the program that was run over the summer plus this, my impression is that a lot of good work was done, and I would expect to see some positive results, within the sixth grade. I'm not going to be surprised at all based on that. And also, again, seeing what's on our agenda tonight for the American Heritage Tour, right, the AHT field trip. I think that's great to see that on here. I think these sort of kind of, enrichment experiences to provide to students. If you talk to people that graduated, 20 years ago, these are the things that they talk about, right? They talk about the trip to Ferry Beach, the relationships they formed, what they learned. Certainly the AHT trip, I think, falls into that category as well. So happy to see kind of this return to normalcy and, the focus on these kind of great experiences, right? We're going to provide a great education, but these experiences that can really enrich, the students that do come to school in our district, I think are, exactly what we want to be doing. So, hoping that Ferry Beach trip can again become a yearly tradition if possible, right? We always got to kind of be responsible with the way we do it, but I think the community would support that. They understand how important these things are. And yeah, I think that, again, looking forward to seeing some of the feedback on that and the data that comes from the surveys and such, but job well done there.
Thank you, Chris, for highlighting that. I think that you made some really good points. And quite a list of things, collaborations with Franklin Pierce.
Yeah, I did have something else too. Just kind of unrelated, but going back to the CTE, I know it's been a bit of a struggle. Maybe that's not the right word, but we don't have, I'd say, complete clarity around the process, right, for submitting that funding. I know I've probably asked this question a couple of times and understand that you've, reached out, but I really want to be sure we understand what that process is. And we don't need to discuss it now, but certainly for the next meeting. Again, to be sure we're focused on the right kind of deliverables and the right timeline. Given how near term it is, I think that still should be a priority, is figuring out what we need by when, and, understanding that process all the way through so that we can be sure we're on track and, spending our time and money responsibly as we work towards, you know, eventually, I think we have an end goal of improving our CTE program, taking advantage of the state funding, but a lot of that's going to depend on the timing.
Yep.
And what we can get done. I just hate to see us lose out on anything by not understanding that.
Yeah, another good point, Chris. Thank you for bringing that up. That was certainly one of the 6 items I picked up from Ruben's report. I'm sure there were a few I missed like that, but Ruben, a question relating to that. I know you did discuss the architects coming to interview people and also to do their assessment, try and get to where they can make recommendations. The question about the timing of the proposal, have you had any luck getting through to anyone at the state on, you know, anyone who has information who can speak authoritatively?
Right, so we met last week with the high school admin team as they were putting together all the lists and groups and so forth for this coming week. And I don't have the date as of right now, but the plan put forward there was to get another meeting with Jeff Beard and to give him all the questions. We made a list of questions that we wanted to make sure that there was some preparation ahead of time. Last time when we met with this Department of Ed, it was less informative perhaps because we didn't have those questions out there in time. So it was that I would expect that to happen within the week.
So Mr. Beard is the representative of the DOE.
He's the one that is there right now. When we met with them last time, he indicated that the person who knew a lot of the information had left the Department of Education. So at this point in time, I would expect that information has been found at this point in time to help with the funding process and the time frames.
Yeah. Do we know if the other districts in our program have these same questions, or do they?
They started the process.
We're in the,
Yeah.
we're different districts, right? We're
Sure.
all participating in the same
Yep.
process. We're all part of the same CT program.
Yeah.
Have we reached out to them to see if they have an understanding of like?
Yeah,
the deadlines
so those two programs are ahead of us.
Yeah.
They started earlier, so they, I have not contacted Messinic. We have been in touch with the director who's over at Conval. And so there's some information that we've received. That individual will be here or should be here this coming week to take part in this process.
Oh, on Thursday or this week? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, well, a lot going on. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments? Daisy, you're all set out there? Daisy, I
Yes,
have a
I'm
question.
good.
Can you hear us pretty well? Is the audio accurate?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Good to know. Funny being in this setup, it's hard to know, what people online are experiencing. Okay, well, Ruben, thank you for your report, and let's move on to the consent agenda. Yes.
Just a quick point on the audio. The reason why I'm wearing the headphones is because my phone's actually plugged into the existing meeting. So I'm constantly monitoring the audio levels and everything as we're going through to make sure that our online audience has the same experience as their in-person audience. So it's not just kind of up to chance. I am monitoring it directly and making sure that we're good to go.
I know that. It's just sitting here in the audience. Sometimes it's.
Before we start the consent agenda, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, the last time we had a waiver request coming for the board, I asked who was the point person for the MOUs with the Range Rec Department and the Jaffrey Rec Department. Okay, and with this consent agenda, we've got considerable waivers coming forward. And I'd just like to know, do we have a point person to work on these MOUs with Jaffrey and Range?
Yes, it is on the list of things to do. We're going to make sure that happens prior to the budget season. And so we will be putting those together.
Those actually aren't on the consent agenda. They're,
Yeah, they're actually
Action
gonna be in
items.
the,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I wish they were.
All right, I got confused, but that's okay.
No.
I'm always confused.
I would not say that is true. Seems to me you're pretty on top of things, Charlie. Okay, so we've removed the minutes from August 28th. And we've added another resignation. Okay. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as amended.
A second,
And Lisa and Charlie, thank you both. Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Lisa,
aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
Christopher,
I,
and Daisy.
Sorry, which was this for? The consent agenda as amended?
Yes,
Yes, aye.
okay, thank you. And I vote aye. Okay, that passes 6-0.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the August 28th public and non-public meeting. That's the one that was pulled out, right?
Yes,
The August 28th public and non-public meeting minutes.
thank you, Charlie.
I'll second.
And thank you, Christine. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Lisa,
Abstain?
Christine,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
Chris,
I,
Daisy,
Abstained.
and I vote aye. So that passes 4-2. Oh, well, 4-0-2, sorry. 2 abstentions. Okay. And now we're on to action items, including requests to waive facilities fees. And pertinent to the question that Charlie raised just a couple of minutes ago.
I am so, I agree with the MOU that process is going to make things much more efficient. And I hope really hope the timing of any of these groups needing to wait to get our approval has not caused any grief. I kind of did a quick check on our live calendar to see if there's things already in conflict, and I'm not seeing things. But I can't tell you how much I love just seeing all these usages. Like, that in itself is really nice to be able to see, okay, these are the community groups using this fall. That wasn't the whole purpose of doing it, but I really like seeing it. So
It's part of the purpose.
Yeah.
All right, so since this is before the board, what's our process?
to approve the waive of fees.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't need any further discussion or recommendation, Juno?
I have a question.
Yes, Christine.
So you know that I'm aware of the after-school karate program, and I'm just confused as to why the Renge Rec Department has asked for a waiver, but the Jaffrey Rec Department hasn't asked for a waiver. That's one question. I don't know if anybody can answer that, but it is odd. It is not, I checked today, it's not being run through Renge.
So I'm seeing that they've asked for a waiver. I don't understand. Oh,
That's
Parks and
not
Rec
for
and
karate,
Rec.
unless it's just typed incorrectly. So I don't, that was just a
Oh,
question that came up.
so for the Jaffrey karate, why aren't they getting, why aren't they asking
There's a
for a waiver?
program at JGS on Mondays.
Does the same person run it? Are they thinking that it's the same?
It's the same person, but it's run through 2 different rec departments.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. Just something.
Might just be a timing thing. It's
That's the big question. And I know there was an issue that the rec departments were already collecting a facilities fee for this program. Has that been resolved?
No, we haven't created that MOU yet.
When one looks at, thinks back to the superintendent's report and all the items on there, it's easy to understand
Yeah.
why the superintendent hasn't sat down for memorandums of understanding, however.
Mhm.
Well, I think there's some value in what Lisa said, not that this is the reason why. This has nothing to do with, it has been a jam-packed summer, so it's been more of a scheduling thing. And certainly the goal was to make sure that we had it prior to budgeting season so that we knew what to budget for and so forth. And so we'll make sure that that takes place. But it is interesting to go and look at this. I agree with you, Lisa. When I saw this, I was like, huh. And, you know, I, for one, have not looked at the specific things that have been requested. And I think one of these, because of the requests that have gone through, is it the Jaffrey Holiday Craft Fair? I think that's actually being held in Rinch, is that not? I think this.
That's what it says on.
Because we couldn't, yeah, because part of our conversations through all of this is that we can't keep, we need to not displace our own learners who have their basketball games and things. These are, you know, first and foremost, their facilities. And so when they have games, we need to be able to let them keep them in the facilities that they're supposed to be playing for, rather than trying to do another away game or trying to move it to another location and so forth. That our kids deserve to, you know, for the resources that we do have, for it to be spent on them. So,
That's in our facilities priorities.
yes, that's correct.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion anyway.
Before we make a
Yeah.
motion, I just wanted to bring up an additional point that's not on the agenda, just for consideration. So if you look at the request specifically for the PAC meetings for PAC 33, it says bi-monthly, but when you actually check into the entry, it shows that the first event and the last event are the same date. So I did ask for clarification on that from PAC 33, just that we don't have to have another waiver request submitted. They did give me those other dates that they would be requesting, being December 7th and March 7th. So I didn't know if the board wanted to consider that as part of their motion, or if we wanted to hold off and ask them to submit for those remaining 2 dates. But I just, because it looked a little weird, I just asked the clarifying question, so.
I wouldn't recommend, I would recommend taking it on the good faith with those new dates that you can put in. But could we ask somebody to contact John Colmorgan about the karate question? Just to make sure that that goes through the system correctly there. And I'll make a motion to accept the waiver requests as noted.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Charlie. Is there any more discussion on those items? And hearing none, let's move to a roll call vote. Christopher?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
And Daisy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So those carried 6-0. Okay, and now we're on to the Little Orioles Center handbook. So this is for approval of that handbook. I think we looked at this last time, right? But it was not completely finalized at the time.
Yes, I'm looking for a piece of information because I was just looking through this and I think there's an adjustment that needs to be made. I want to make sure I give you the right information. So the last time we had this, we did not have the acknowledgement that the language had largely come from the Child Development Center over at Keene State College. They have a similar philosophy, and due to the fact that we are having our high school kids be part of this as well, like it mimics their having their college kids there. So it was a nice parallel. There are many things from their handbook that we did not include because they are just, you know, they have, first of all, they're licensed by the state they need to be for their programming and so forth. Right now, that's not a priority of ours. We may look into that over the course of the year. We're doing everything to make sure that our ratios are good and that we can be licensed. We certainly are following all those guidelines that are already outlined on the through the state of New Hampshire. But there is a process that you have to go through in order to do that. The thing that, Juno, if we go down to the other part that we were asked to put in there, I think we do have an error on here that we'll have to adjust. We put the chart, the tuition chart, so we do have, if individuals come in and they drop in, it's going to be a rate of $7 per hour. We have individuals signing up because their own childcare that they're already involved with, for instance, their days are closing, and so they need to, come over and utilize hours. And they may be utilizing hours, in the future anyway, but they already had some agreements with other places. This first part was, the daily tuition is the one that we have to change. It shouldn't have 560, 445, 300, 145. I think it was per day we were doing 40 in the course of a week. It was like 40, 80. So that one will have to change. I don't know if you still have those numbers or.
Yeah, that's my, I'll grab those real quick.
Yeah, and the other ones were fine because they were monthly tuitions, but we did have a daily rate. And that's what needs to be changed here. But so we have our daily rate within the course of a week. If you attend, 4 days, it is going to be the same as the 5 days. So those numbers are would be divided by a certain number, but they would be similar. And then it would be, I think it's like 40, 80. Do you have that? We pulled it up.
How did you arrive at those numbers? What was the?
Divided, what we did was we did a survey of the staff and we asked them what they could afford per month. Or per week, and then put it forward. 80% fit all within a certain number. Some were a little bit lower, some could go a little bit higher. Most of it was right in the middle there. And so we took that number. Leslie did some work around dividing it by the number of days that we have in school. And then once we had a monthly rate, we just made that all the way through. So we'll have some during the summertime as well. If we have employees, like if we don't have a lot of individuals who need childcare during the summertime, then we have other educational work that's happening in the elementary schools and in the middle school that need to be that they'll have those workers will have the opportunity to be part of. So we keep them employed all the way through the course of the year.
So I took a deep dive into this and I was very impressed with it. I did.
There we go. That's what it would be: 40, 80, 120, and then the 150. That would be a week. Basically, it's 600 divided by 4.
Thank you, Rupert. Christine?
Because they're going to be high school, because there are high school learners who are in this daycare setting and they are dealing with very private, intimate moments, whether it's a teacher nursing.
Yep.
There is a social media policy. I'm wondering if there should be a more specific agreement with the student learners saying what happens here stays here.
Yeah, that's being discussed right now with the school counseling department as to how we have not gone forward with ELOs or with any learners who haven't already gone through a program. So we do have a learner who has already gone through the program, the CTE program, and has some education behind her and so forth, and has been able to come and help us out and support. And actually we plan on, because we need substitutes, we plan on, hiring in a part-time way to make sure that we have the staffing because that person's qualified to do so.
Okay. That's just my
Yeah.
concern.
Oh, absolutely. It is it's a wonderful thing to have here,
Mm-hmm.
but we do have to consider. Like you said, there are a lot of moments that are very private. And we've done well to make sure that those moments have remained private, which is good. And I'm glad that we have the space to do so, but we have to. Every time you add a layer, we have to add more security.
And that's not just students, that's the staff as well. I've seen daycares where staff feel perfectly fine grabbing a phone and taking, like that can't happen.
No,
Right, yeah.
No.
I have a quick question on the breastfeeding friendly policy. Is there is a mom in the school who is in need of expressing she doesn't have a child, and is that open for her as well to use for a private place to express milk, or is this only for people using the daycare center?
So we would, anything that would be in line with. This whole whatever, I think I missed the piece
Okay,
of what you're.
so
what you're
let's
asking.
say that there is a teacher here who is actively nursing and
But
expresses milk and stores it.
But the child.
Is this a place where that teacher, even if their child is not here,
Yes,
that they can
Yes.
utilize a safe private place
Yes.
in the storage and the facilities?
yes, yeah,
Good.
we have a refrigerator and so forth. We probably actually, our refrigerator is a little small over there. We're probably gonna trade it out with another refrigerator that's larger.
Good.
But yeah,
Cool.
because we maxed out. So if the numbers are small right now, around about 6 full-time and 8 or so total, 8 to 9 at 9 as a result of today. Some part-time, and then we would expect it to be probably in a few months, maybe closer to that 8 full-time, and then remain keeping those part-time people. And then I know that after this year, we'll have more people coming on board. Our numbers were to break even. We were really looking at 12 being that break even number, but it's actually been nice to ease into this.
Yeah.
Because we do in that area, and we have a couple different areas. Your ratios have to be different for kids who are under 1. And we have those children, and we're gonna have more soon, so. We've got the cribs. We have those. So if anyone here in the public would like to see the center, we have it and we can definitely show you. It's a neat place.
Is it, how much of an open door is it? So is this a place where teachers, I feel like I need a break, or I want to take my lunch in the children's room, or, is this protected? Like, is this?
It is protected. Doors are locked at all times, first of all, from anyone from the outside. So I go in probably, at least once a day, because I work with the faculty there. The parents, come in. And I suppose if they were to bring someone with them, that would be the case, but it's not.
It's not a hangout.
It's not a hangout. No,
Okay.
it's just the people who are working there with the children.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Otherwise, all the teachers would be down there.
Well, it's a joyful place. It really is. It's
We're having meetings.
Let's do an annual rescue league next.
Yeah.
There you go.
it's certainly broadened my experience.
Yeah, a kitten cafe. Let's do that.
Okay, now you've said that there are some minor adjustments there.
Yeah, Juno just made them
Okay. So this
to
is,
the above. If you want to scroll that
Specifically-
down, what was originally there,
That one
it
right
was
there.
just the daily rates. So within a week. So if someone comes in and says, I only want to use the center 2 days a week, which is, because their family watches them the other 3 days,
Mhm.
then they'd pay, for instance, $80 that week. They wouldn't,
okay,
or if they're just coming in for a week, then they pay $150 for them. If they drop in an hour a day, we've been able to, we weren't originally going to do that, but there's been a need has arisen for that sort of thing. And so if we have an hour or 2 day, then we have an hourly rate. If they go, if for instance, they come the entire day or 6 hours out of that day, then they'll just be charged the daily rate.
So I wasn't gonna ask this question, but now I'm gonna,
Okay.
I'm gonna throw it out there. Is it reasonable to assume that in setting these policies, that you've surveyed local daycare systems to ask how they handle questions such as the need for an hourly caring or a single day? In other words, have you looked at policies from other daycares to, see what their best practices are?
We've looked at the handbooks of a variety of these places. Some of them have tuition, some of them don't have it in there. But I think the daily rates were really based upon what we did for the monthly rates. The monthly rates were based upon survey and also the idealistic view of trying to keep it around that 7 to 10% of income. So we looked at that, if assuming a person does it for the year, as opposed to what is currently there. We also, and to be as close in a perfect, if we had 12 or more individuals, would we break even? That's kind of the idea. Obviously, there are startup costs this first year.
Policy issue that I would throw out as an example, suggestion. There's a daycare I visit where a couple of my grandchildren are there and I occasionally pick them up. But I'm the third authorized person to do that, and 3 is the maximum at this particular daycare. So like if my wife wanted to go there to pick up these grandchildren, we would have to make a switch. It's just the policy they have, try and keep control. So I mean, I'm not
I
speaking
see
to
what you're
that
saying.
policy,
Okay.
but just in general,
Okay.
those kinds of things.
Yeah, and then after even going through everything, we chose to mimic ours after what we think is the strongest policy out there.
Okay.
In the region, which
Okay.
is the Keene State one,
Okay.
which makes sense that would be the case. Since they're doing it, teaching the, teachers, basically. But the rates are easily half or less than half of what is the norm right now out there.
All right, very good. And in the interest of moving us along, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the Little Orioles Center handbook?
Ready? I'd like to make a motion to accept the Little Orioles Center's handbook as amended.
As amended, right? Thank you, Christine.
No, second.
And thank you, Lisa. Okay, well, I guess we'll do a roll call vote since we've got Daisy online, we're on Zoom. Daisy?
Aye.
Thank you, Daisy. Chris?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
And Lisa?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. Nice discussion about a very significant new initiative, right? Okay, SAU 47 handbook.
So this handbook is similar to what we approve every year. Inside, there had to be several adjustments made from last year because within this you have the JRSSA information and we negotiated a new contract, and that contract had significant, I would say, significant adjustments from what it had been in the past. So all of that had to be changed. Most of anything that had to do with the SAU or the teacher associations, benefits and so forth was the same. We did have to change names of individuals responsible for a couple of the categories, such as the Title IX investigators. There's a fairly large process that goes on if there's a Title IX complaint or anything of that nature. So part of that is because we have a change in a few different positions at the administration level, certainly at Jaffrey Grade School. principal change. And here we have an assistant principal change, and so those names are reflected within the changes here. Carrie, did you think of any other changes that we made? I know that you had some, but I think that was pretty much the majority.
That was the majority. I know JRSSA.
JRSSA was the bulk of the change. Yep. So if you've gone through it and you feel good about putting it forward tonight, that being just kind of an updated version of what has already been, that's perfectly fine. If you feel as a board, we need to do our normal process and you receive it this time and we come back the next time, that's okay too.
I just have two questions on it. One is in the sick time portion. Do we? It's been a while since we've looked at our COVID framework. Do we require staff, if they test positive, to stay out for 5 days?
No,
We do not.
recommended.
It's recommended.
Mhm.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure, yeah, I'm just looking at the sick time and seeing that things. My second question is, does this handbook pertain to coaches and the extracurricular staff that we pay for? That we pay?
It shouldn't, because
I don't
those are
think-
temporary
I think-
considered,
Yeah, I think this is.
unless they're a permanent employee.
Permanent employees, yeah. We do have a handbook. Would we have, I believe we have a handbook for the coaches. We have policy for coaches. I don't think so.
Okay. I ask because, as always, I want every coach to have to go through the same online and in-person trainings regarding
We have
bullying
policies
and
around, yeah.
and
Strength.
technology use and use of restraints, and I want them having that.
Mhm.
And so that's.
Yep.
If they're under this, then they get it. Assuming,
Mhm. That's a good point.
I like it's a mantra. Okay.
So I have a question too. Juno, since my battery has died on my computer, can you pull up the section on the drug-free workplace and the tobacco products ban?
Do you happen to remember what page that
I
is?
and J.
Page
under-
26.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it might be on 27, but it starts on page 26.
Mhm. So my question is around the New Hampshire's decision to decriminalize the use of cannabis. And so don't know if the policy was adjusted to make that, to include that as alcohol and cannabis are prohibited. Alcohol, cannabis and tobacco are prohibited. I didn't really see it mentioned, but I don't know if I missed that.
Yeah, I think it's down a little bit
Right there.
close. Just keep scrolling. I think it's after Title IX.
I know,
Right.
I'm finding it, it's interesting.
Drug-free
Workplace,
workplace.
so it's not an illicit drug anymore.
The page numbers need updating.
30.
Yeah, some of the changes that were reflected on here haven't actively been changed in the page numbers. That'll happen after approval's made.
Or it could say something about, illicit drugs, comma, cannabis and alcohol. If that's necessary.
Okay. Do we have, if you scroll down just a little bit more to page 31. Tobacco product ban, just look at that.
I'm not sure where we would include, like, I'm not seeing where we would have to include something specific to cannabis.
So it's not illicit.
Yeah.
We mentioned alcohol.
Yep.
So the state basically is putting cannabis at the same level as alcohol. So I don't know where it would fall in. We prohibit use of tobacco, we prohibit the use of alcohol, we prohibit the use of illicit drugs, but this is none of those three.
Right. Does that need to be?
I don't know. I think that's a good question.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's referenced specifically in the policy. I'd have to go through it
It's not
formally, but
referenced
there
in
is
the policy.
another policy, ADC, which is prohibited substances.
Okay.
So that may or may not be specifically referenced here, but that, that has the actual list. I was trying to read through it real quick. It doesn't specifically reference different drugs that I'm seeing, but it does have a lot of like RSA references. You know, like controlled and their analogs. That's a little too far away for me to see well. But I don't think that the handbook has references to like every single policy, so just because it's like not necessarily in there, it might not. There's still policies that kind of cover that, if I'm understanding correctly what you're looking for.
Well, I guess I'm wondering,
What you're saying is that it was considered an illicit drug,
yes.
and so that language was in our policy, and as a result of the state downgrading it.
Yeah.
If it's still something that we're not interested in having there, it's not covered by the phrase illicit drug anymore, that category, and so you're saying throw it in there as another category. I mean, it's not gonna hurt to put a comma.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I put it here, but I think that ACD, is that what it was? That would probably be an appropriate place to edit. And there was one spot I saw that I'd want to fix. Regardless, but we could bring that into the, what we are calling illicit. You can have that conversation at the policy committee. Not a bad thing to put on the agenda. Now that there's updates, that should be something we look at. So I will make note.
So then I'm hearing we're gonna make these updates and bring this back for our next meeting. Moving this on.
Yeah, well, if there's anything else
Yeah, I don't
in
see-
between that you have questions on and so forth, just send them via email. And you can send that to either Juno or Sarah Grapple, HR. She's in charge of this.
Are we waiting to approve this for that particular change? Because I'm suggesting we not change it in here whatsoever, that it simply get changed in our policy, but because this. I'm
Okay, so
not
now-
seeing where we would
All
change
right.
it here.
Well, I didn't know if there were other things that you had. If people are fine with it, then I'd say, let's approve if that's okay. We could do approve.
Mhm. I'll make a motion to approve it as is.
Okay. Lisa, thank you for the motion.
Policy supersedes the handbook anyway. So
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, Charlie, thank you for the second. So the motion has been made to approve the policy. Or the SAU 47 handbook, that is. And let's do a roll call vote, and we'll start with Lisa
Aye.
and Christine
Aye.
and Charlie
Aye.
and Christopher
Aye.
and Daisy.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. And I vote aye also. Okay. So that will take care of that, and now we're on to policy review. And we start with EBB, and
Okay.
Lisa.
We've gone through. Man, okay, so this is the third reading, and in each of the policies that you'll see here, I hope that you guys have taken a look at them. Items in blue are edits that we've made, and almost always it's like one word or one phrase we've removed. All of them were done in conjunction with some admin, some parents. There was some real teamwork that happened with this. So I think at our last meeting, it was a second reading for GBEBB, and we were working with the terms like fraternize and removing language that would be confusing to people in our small community who all are, our staff take care of each other and take care of neighbors' kids. I mean, it was just like, it didn't make sense. So pretty much we just edited very little wording. I would like it to go through today. I have nothing else to.
Okay, are you making the motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept GBEBB as rewritten many times
As amended and as presented.
as presented.
Yeah. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Christine, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Just because they coincide with each other, do we want to add to the motion the removal of JICDAA?
It was coming.
Okay.
We have
Okay,
a long list,
all right, so you've amended your motion to add the removal of JICD.
if we want to do that. Yeah, this
Well, it's
was,
up to you, it's your motion, so,
all right, then, no, let's just keep going.
okay, all right. So then roll call vote. Lisa,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and Daisy. Sorry,
Aye.
okay, I vote aye.
All right. JICDAA is a very similar one that the New Hampshire School Board Association said remove that to update GBEBB. So I would ask that you please remove JICDAA. That's my motion.
Then you're making a motion to that effect. Okay, thank you, Lisa.
I'll second that.
And Christine, thank you. Seeing no likely discussion, say, roll call vote. Daisy, let's start with you.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Daisy. Chris?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Uh, Christine, Lisa,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Okay.
Uh,
Now I'd like to take these out of order a little bit. The J policies have been something that the policy committee's been working on for years. These are the student-related policies directly. And they have been exhaustive in what we've gone through and who we have contacted and how we've just gone through this process. And they've been very hard. We're dealing with situations that these are very real situations to us. And we can picture families, we can picture kids this all relates to. We can picture teachers that get affected by all this. So I am hoping that you guys took some time and read them. The policies I'm speaking of are JLDBB, the suicide prevention and loss, JIC, student conduct, JICD, student discipline and due process, JICDR, memorandum of understanding for that, and JLDBA, behavior management and intervention. The policies listed that we have, we've taken from the New Hampshire School Board Association pretty directly in a few cases, and we've asked the admin to look at all of them. And they have come back with recommendations. By and large, these have been accepted as is, except for every once in a while, there's a term that will change, but very little. And any changes you'll see as you open it are highlighted in blue. Some of these we found really powerful. We might have, I think for our current JLDBB suicide prevention, we have one little bitty paragraph that was done back in 2005 or something. This particular one that from the, if you would mind opening up JLDBB, Juno, the suicide prevention and loss. This one was much more exhaustive. It gives much more detail in how we train people to recognize situations, to manage situations, to care for each other in situations. It also puts upon the district something unique, and says that the district is now going to have both a district suicide liaison and building representatives that people can go to, parents, teachers, staff, students can say, this is the person, they're on this hotline sheet that everybody has by their phones. I have a concern. I really need to talk with this person. My personal recommendation is going to be that liaison not be the building principal. I think that sometimes there's situations where the principal is not the first person that somebody wants to call. They might have some anxiety in that. It needs to be somebody who can be a trusted advocate in the school. But this is saying that every school is going to have a designated person that people can call for concerns, for extra training, for help. They'll know this, they'll know the deal. So it's not just a training we're asking for. We're asking for physical people to take on the responsibility of being a go-to, should there be concerns. And if we make this a policy, that's mandatory then. That is something that this is what we're asking. What we decided in the committee was to leave the, whether this should be a paid district position for the district person or not, up to the superintendent to budget for. But we would like to get this in place as soon as possible. And I believe if you go up to the top, Juno, would you mind? I believe this is mandatory. Yeah. So this was mandatory a year ago. We've been really out of compliance. Now, I'm not saying we're out of compliance training wise. We have been doing exactly the training we should do, but having this policy updated is a requirement. So I would like to make the recommendation that we skip second readings for those J policies that I mentioned and approve all the J policies as the amendments are listed. And really, they're just like a word, but you can take a look and see. And this is just for the J policies listed.
I'll second it, Lord.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. So I would like to, other comments? Questions? All right, I would like to say that I would like to not skip the second reading because I feel this is too important to go through it quickly. And I looked at this believing there would be an opportunity for a second reading. And therefore didn't spend as much time on it as I would have if I thought there was going to be a vote tonight. And I will make a comment too about what you've just described. I'm involved with a program that works with young people, a youth program. And we have a system through the Rotary, which is the sponsor of this youth program, where there are 5 different people that a student can go to if they have a concern over something. Now, we're not dealing exclusively with concerns around suicide, obviously. All sorts of concerns that may relate to growing up and to dealing with difficult situations. But the point of our policy is that there should be multiple people. I think you make an excellent point that shouldn't be the student, the school principal, because the principal has obvious, authority responsibilities and has to be the heavy sometimes. But when you step to that next person or name that second person, is that the right person? Perhaps for some students, perhaps not for others. Now, does that mean this policy should be changed? I'm not saying it should. Maybe it's all we can do to have one person. But speaking for myself, I don't like the idea of skipping the second reading, so. That would be, it's my comment.
We have a motion and we have a second. And we have had some discussion. Is there any further discussion?
Oh, okay, so let's do the roll call vote. Daisy, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Thank you. Christopher?
No,
Charlie?
No, I don't think we should proceed without everybody involved.
Okay. Lisa?
I'll say no as well for the same reason.
Okay. And Christine?
Mhm.
Okay.
Second reading. All right. DJH is our next on the agenda. And I asked Juno this morning, and I'm sorry for the delay on this. I asked Juno to include DIH. This has been something that we've come around to many times. So DJH, if you wouldn't mind opening that one up, please.
DJH or DIH?
DJH. Okay. If you look at the title, entertainment catering and venue rental, and then you read the policy, there is one piece that's confusing in this. How does the policy relate to venue rental, first of all? Now, the history of this policy, as I understand it, is that a few years back, there was a misappropriation of funds. And after the fact, the district spent a great deal of money, and after the fact, it was decided to make sure that did not happen again by creating this policy. The New Hampshire School Board Association does not have this policy. There is no DJH for the New Hampshire School Board Association. Maybe they did at the time, but there's no record of it and anywhere, as far as if you've looked for this now. What this has become in our district is a means of making it so admin and staff cannot spend district money to support food or memorabilia effects that would incentivize staff. So for beginning of the year, they can't buy coffee and donuts for new staff coming in or for their PD. For the end of the year, they can't buy burgers and dogs to have a picnic. They can't have fleece jackets with the new logo on it. They can't have lanyards purchased by the district with the new logo on it. So this is only, this is saying that any money spent in the district can only be directly serving students. But where it's become is something a little twisted. And it was brought back onto attention by an admin at our goals meeting. At the last goals meeting, we went through all these incredible things that we've accomplished. I say we, I have nothing to do with it. Like what the staff has accomplished in achieving major goals, really moving forward with the strategic plan. At the very end of this 27 page document was a written statement by an admin saying, please look at this policy again. It's really insulting to us. We are making our admin spend their own money to support their staff, because what we're saying as a school board is that we don't believe that supporting the staff directly has anything to do with the kids. And two pieces this summer really hit home to me with this policy as we were struggling with this. One is I found out that there was a professional development training of 2 schools. Very cool. Collaborative effort of 2 schools meeting to do days of workshop planning this summer, their time. I believe it was here. Might not have been, but I think it actually happened here. But once that the partnering school district paid for their lunch for their staff doing this, they valued the work they were doing. Our district did not. When that partnering school district found that out, they paid for lunch for our staff, which embarrasses me. Thank you, that school district, but I feel embarrassed. The other thing that happened is, I don't know how much you guys might know about the Jaffrey Ringe Education Association. So this is cool nonprofit. There's this cool group of people like this Jaffrey Grade School parent group.
Foundation.
A foundation.
JREF.
Jeffrey, okay, the foundation. So it's this cool foundation that was started quite a long time ago now of caring community members who said, we want to start supporting our school district, our towns, and put money towards specific things that maybe aren't budgeted, maybe are special, that they really can't budget for, but something unique. And I remember being the recipient of that one year when I worked here. I was a para working or associate working in the library here. And we got some really neat technology that wasn't budgeted for, but it was going to be so useful for the kids for their television production stuff. And it was really cool. And the group said, is there something we can get? And we said, yeah, a couple thousand would go to this and it would be such a cool thing for them and they could use it right now. And they did, and it was phenomenal. This summer, I found out that the Jaffrey Ringe Education Foundation paid for the breakfast for the staff, which meant some of their money didn't go to cool things for the students. They said, no, this is important. So we're going to, why weren't we paying for breakfast? Like I felt embarrassed. It would just felt like a waste. Like, I don't understand how that closing the barn door after the horses got out on some really unfortunate things that happened years ago. People are paying for this, literally paying for this out of their pocket that weren't even here then, had nothing to do with this. Now, in my opinion, this is a misguided effort. And I think it's an inappropriate use for the school board to be in charge of micromanaging funding like that. What I believe needs to happen is this, and let me do this first, Charlie, and then please, okay? So what I believe needs to happen is that I believe this policy needs to be rescinded completely. It is misguided. We don't have a venue that we rent. And if we did, it would be serving students. Okay, that isn't what this is. But I found a policy that we don't have, that I can't believe we don't have. So Juno, would you please put up DIH? This is a policy. Now look at the date. I'm sorry, 2015 was that date. Okay, DIH. 2 years later, 2017, the New Hampshire School Board Association made this policy, or at least updated it. And all this says is that we are going to be fiscally responsible. We are going to monitor who uses our money. We are going to make sure the taxpayers are covered and that we're not going to mess with the money. This is who is responsible for it. This is what happens if there's fraud. And an interesting point is at the bottom, it says, this talks about the superintendent being the main person, but if the school board feels the superintendent is screwing around with the money, the school board chair becomes the person who is the check and balance. And so I feel that this serves the purpose that I think the intention of DJH was supposed to do. You know, people misappropriated funds. It was unacceptable. I believe this policy does more to cover us in that kind of situation again than making it so that we're micromanaging admin budgets.
Okay, Lisa, thank you for your explanation. We have comments or?
Yes, I have comments.
Okay.
I'd like to make 5 points. Okay, trying to keep them as brief as possible. We have 3 choices: to rescind this policy, modify it, or leave it alone. If this policy is rescinded, it will give an administration a blank check to spend taxpayer money on staff perks. Okay, not district money, taxpayer money. However, it's not a matter of trust for the current staff. I trust them. However, none of our current administrators were in position when this policy was last reviewed and may not be there when it is next reviewed. The board may not even be here. So we should think twice about the long term rather than reacting to the short term. 2, studies have shown that perks such as coffee and donuts or pizza don't improve productivity or morale. But if the perks are there and then taken away, it does negatively affect productivity and morale. Okay. 3, our learners have made significant progress with this policy in place. I polled the administrators just last week, and each one said there was very high morale in their school. The exception is special ed. Special ed is under stress from issues other than perks. So we're making great progress and have very high morale. So what is the driver for rescinding this policy? 4, administrators are using their own money to pay for certain activities which they view as important, not perks, but rewards and special appreciation events. I don't believe administrators should have to pay for these. I think the policy can be amended to be less restrictive. Administrators should be able to provide food or snacks for performance recognition or as appreciation for extensive professional development. However, there needs to be some oversight and guidance as to what is appropriate use of taxpayer money. Rescinding this policy won't achieve that. Amending it will. 5, there are some that may say that we can rescind this policy and still control spending by the budget. The New Hampshire legislature has placed the responsibility of creating our budget on his school board. This is where community oversight is supposed to happen. That's great in theory, but not in actual practice. There are over 1,800 line items in our budget. Can any board member say that they have reviewed every line item? Can any board member say that they understand what activity each line item funds? Can any board member say they know that each line has the proper amount of funding to match our community's needs? Any auditor will tell you that a financial system based on trust is a house of cards. If banks didn't have government oversight and rules, would we trust our savings to them? If we don't do our own due diligence, who will? If we rescind this policy instead of amending it, we will be abandoning our oversight responsibility again. And as far as the other policy is concerned, it addresses fraud. It does not address use of taxpayer money for perks. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, well, Lisa and Charlie, I'd like to congratulate you two for getting your heads together on this and coming up with a sort of a collaborative kind of
Diverse.
yeah.
Polar.
I will say that they have been civil with one another inside policy meetings, so that is what we should congratulate people on.
Yes. Thank you.
Doing the right thing and behaving.
I'm just gonna, without having a position on eliminate or amend, I must say, I haven't struggled professionally with this question myself, working for a not-for-profit, which, I took it as my responsibility that we should spend our money carefully because it was money that came from the public trust. But having said that, our salaries are our biggest expenditure. Spending a lot of, we'd get together a group of people and we're spending a ton of money for every hour they were there. And I wanted them to wait, so I wanted them to have coffee. So that's my 2 cents. Comments from those who haven't spoken on this already, or?
I did want to ask if you were open to opening it to public comment, but we don't have to. It's just that would be your call.
I think we should see if there are any board comments first.
Yeah, I'm interested, right, when we talk about amending it to what? I mean, I think that would have
Well, I think that,
would have a big impact on what I say. You could amend it.
I think
Number of ways.
working with the administrators who we talk to, we can come up with a less restrictive policy that allows them to achieve what they need to achieve, but also doesn't provide for carte blanche, coffee and donuts at every staff meeting, and as an expectation. When people walk into staff meetings or people walk into PLCs and there's not coffee and donuts there, or there's not pizza there, they have an expectation that it's going to be there. And I don't think that that's right. I don't think taxpayers should be paying for perks that are not needed. Stop and think about it. The policy has been in place. We had great progress that we're making. Superintendents just told us all about that. We have great morale. The principals just told us that. So if we have great morale and we have great progress that we're making, why do we make a big change? And my concern is that we shouldn't be just making a wholesale change. What we should be doing is providing some guidance and working with the administrators to make the policy less restrictive. That's just.
Chris, does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I mean, he's proposing a change to the policy, but not necessarily. You're saying that's to be determined what that is.
Yeah,
I think that presenting the case of coffee and donuts at every meeting is, to me, in my understanding of our leadership, not what would happen. I think that maybe almost falls under the case of an abuse of this. And that's not what I would expect our administrators to do. I think there's a certain amount of respect and trust that we have in these people that we hire that will, they'll behave responsibly. Although it is our responsibility to oversee that, I understand. I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Right.
I don't expect that would happen.
From the admin input, my understanding is that they would like the option to be able to budget. school
which makes
To
sense,
say,
right?
this is what we'd like to spend on beginning of the year activities, end of the year activities. This is what we'd like to spend
It's
on.
the way we
on
control
getting-
spending on everything else, right?
Exactly. They
You
would-
put it in the budget and then you hold them accountable to that budget.
That's like everything else.
And I
that
guess
we
that's what
trust
I would
them to do.
expect.
That's like everything else we try, this is ridiculous that the school board is in charge of this, honestly. This is not our job.
And I guess and I was at that goals meeting. I think when that did come up. So agree, the morale is great. But this is my understanding, a sticking point. And I think that, our staff has communicated, at least in that way, that they find this to be insulting. I don't know.
That was the
That's
word.
that was the word that was used. So I think it's appropriate to hear that, right? You can be generally happy in your job and feel like you're doing good things, as I hope you should be doing if you're a teacher and you're, basically shaping our youth, and find a policy to be insulting.
I have to say, I went to a retirement party for a former superintendent, and I thought it was much too lavish. Just kind of remember that. Sorry. Okay, so I
So,
have this
I just want to make a
conversation.
point, if I can.
Yes, please, Charlie.
My concern is not with the current administration. My concern is this policy. If we rescind it, there are going to be other administrators and other school boards that come along before this policy is even reviewed again. So we can't say that, I say that I trust the current administrators, but I don't know what's going to happen with new administrators. I don't know if they're going to be as responsible.
You made that point and you made it well, and I think it's a valid point.
I'm sorry.
But Charlie,
No,
would you
you-
feel
seriously.
more at ease if this were amended, I mean, entirely rewritten so
Yes.
that there was a dollar amount put in, a line item with a dollar amount. And it was said, for breakfast at the beginning, all staff breakfast, and then the all staff barbecue, or something, some parameters. Would that make you feel more comfortable with a dollar amount not to exceed?
Okay, so there are two things. One is, I don't think we should make a list of things that are funded in certain dollar amounts. Okay, I think we need the flexibility of having the administrators do that. What I don't like is making it dependent on the budget. Because I don't know if anybody sits down and reviews the budget. I know I go through trying to cover 1,800 line items, but I don't know if anybody else does. So I hesitate to make it a control of the budget, because I know other school boards are not going to be interested in going through 1,800 line items. So I would be happy if we just had an opportunity to see if we can modify the policy that will accommodate the needs of the administrators, but not give carte blanche. That's because I'm concerned about taxpayers and use of their money, and whether it's going to be used to make rewarding things and motivating things and morale improving things, or whether we're just going to allow perks and hey, we're working tonight, so we're going to get everybody pizza. We're talking about salaried people who make as much as any of our Ringe residents do. Well, why can't they pitch in and pay for their own pizza?
Yeah. Now, a question for Lisa, and Lisa, I can see that you've studied this and you really thought about it a lot, and obviously so has Charlie. But would you be amenable to the notion of rewriting this to make it less restrictive and to, achieve both accountability, but also the flexibility that, you think is needed? Would you be?
I
Open
serve
for-
the board. I serve the board.
Yes, Julie.
Yeah, one point I wanted to bring up, just
Since we're talking about potential modification of this existing policy. And it doesn't specifically speak to what I'm talking about, but it's close enough and I get asked enough about it. So if we are doing a rewrite, I'm wondering if this is something we could consider in the future. I get a lot of people coming up to me, staff members, folks like that, saying, like, is there a budget for like every new staff member gets a lanyard or gets like a shirt or gets like a discount from whatever school's merch store so that they have that piece of merch, I guess, or swag, as some people call it, to just identify with the school that they're going into. And I'm wondering if we are looking at, talking about like perks and things like that, if we would be willing to consider having that thought process go into a policy like that, if we are kind of rewriting some things, just so that it can be more outspoken that things like that could be allowed. And I'm only bringing that up just because I have received a good dozen or more questions about people asking if that's an option.
Good. Thank you for throwing that into the mix. So another item for us to think about it.
I guess I'm failing to understand if we control and set spending for basically every other line item in the budget. why wouldn't we apply the same logic to this expense as we do every single other expense? I don't understand your, I don't understand the logic behind if we can have a budget with how many line items?
1,800.
1,800 line items, right? Why can't we have 1,801
Yeah.
be expenses and hold our administrators and our superintendent accountable to spending below that budget line item? So why does that logic apply to everything else we spend money on and not this?
The only thing I like to say is that the budget is presented and created by the school district. And nobody on the board goes through line item by line item to check it. So you're talking one more line item. I agree, it's only one more line item. But if there's no oversight, because the school board does not review all 1,800 line items, the school board, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but the school board does not understand what each line item funds, what activity they fund. The school board does not understand whether that amount of money is right for their community or not, to meet the needs of their community. We just get a budget coming forward with the superintendent. We ask a few questions and then we decide on a bottom line. And I don't know of anybody who goes through the line items to check to make sure that that's the right amount of money.
Oh, I agree, Carrie goes through it, absolutely.
Carrie does go through it, but she creates the budget.
Oh, it's true.
The superintendent,
Not the school board.
let's say David Dustin says, I want $5,000 in my fund to pay for
Food.
food, all right? Who goes through and questions that $500 or $5,000?
$5,000.
So I guess what's your proposed alternative though? I haven't heard how else so it's either we set a budget or we say nothing.
No.
What's
See,
the in between? I'm just wondering what the
in between.
if it's not a budget line item and it's not a policy prohibiting it, what's that in between look like?
If we have a policy that is less restrictive, we will then have an opportunity to know what is being funded, and then they'll have the budget to do that.
So we're saying there will be a budget line item for it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. There already is one. The superintendent has over $2,000.
Just can't spend it on teachers and staff. Has to be on.
Well,
direct
yes, he
to
can.
students.
When he does recruiting and things like that, it's necessary to spend money on food. So that's understandable. Okay, I'm not against spending money on food. I'm just against not spending, against spending money that's not.
So, Charlie, I feel like you've made a good point and a consistent point. I've also heard though good points. You know, both Chris and Lisa. Can we as a board agree to look at this, try to make this policy more consistent with our values than whatever it was that was written 8 years ago or whenever this was done?
I would like to first make a motion to rescind it.
Okay. And hearing no second, I guess that motion died. No, sorry.
So if we rescind it. Yeah. Yes, that's
I think I was a little too quick on everything.
Yes, I will stick with that.
We have a first and a second. You said second.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Any further discussion?
I guess I agree with, I don't know where you're going with that, John, but if we rescind it, then what's the policy?
Policy is DIH if we approve it.
We haven't approved it.
which doesn't just talk about fraud, it does talk about fiscal management and the oversight needed to make sure that the taxpayer funds are not being misappropriated again.
But it doesn't create a line item.
Okay.
Okay, and
Yeah, I mean, that's my,
But that's not our, we don't do that though. The School board doesn't
so,
create line items. I don't think.
sorry, but let's not have back and forth discussion. How about if we just do one person at a time? I'm trying to get back on the core on or something like that. Chris, are you finished with your comment or?
yes.
Lisa? You have another comment, that's fine. All right, so I have a comment that, and my comment is, Daisy, do you want to chime in on this at all? Or I'm gonna
I
jump in.
don't really know how to chime in on it yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, Daisy. So, as I mentioned in my earlier comment, I'm not particularly happy with the current state of affairs. On the other hand, I am also not happy with resolving this kind of an issue in this way with a, a vote to rescind it, whether it fails, whether that vote fails or passes, it feels to me like this is a board that has been fortunate to be able to discuss things and come to some kind of meeting of the minds, and that's my comment. So. All right, so we have a vote, we have a motion and a second for discussion. Let's go through the roll call vote. Lisa,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Charlie,
No.
Chris,
No,
Daisy,
No,
and I vote no also.
So moving forward, I needed to do that first.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody. The reason I asked for the public comment is because I have a letter from the admin. David wrote it and got it signed by the other principals and admin. So if I might move forward with that. The district administration is writing to ask for an adjustment to policy DJH. The current policy is restrictive to our efforts to bolster staff morale and create a supportive school environment for district employees. A strong sense of community and consistent employee morale are both critical to every workplace. Having occasional opportunities to feed staff during special events, during full-day professional training, during hardships, etc., as well as providing things like lanyards, t-shirts, etc., are central to these ends. Morale, in turn, retains staff and improves the effectiveness of our organization. Currently, the administration pays for things to boost morale and build community out of our own pockets, often at an expense of several $100s each year. The message this policy sends and the impacts it has are not consistent with the positive, collaborative, and staff-supporting schools we believe the board intends to create. We are asking the board to eliminate policy DJH and to authorize a reasonable budget annually to be used for purposes such as food for the beginning and end of year staff celebrations, breakfast food, staff barbecue, etc. Provide food to staff on professional development days. Provide small acknowledgements of staff work through small purchases such as lanyards, thank you cards, occasional food items in the staff room, etc. If the board is not amenable to eliminating the policy, we would ask for it to be modified to accomplish the same outcome noted above. In either case, we hope the board exhibits trust in its administrators to faithfully implement such initiatives and manage funds judiciously, and that the board acts accordingly with that trust where this policy is concerned. Thank you for your consideration. David Dustin, Deanna Zils, sorry if I got that name wrong, Deanna, Nicola Fraley, and Jennifer Horn.
thank you. All right, so I guess this is back in Ruben's lap now to develop. No, sorry, I shouldn't be making light of.
So I would make a motion to work on amending this policy to achieve the ends of the administration.
And accountability.
And accountability, yes. I mean, it's not something that's impossible to work out. We can work out. Because I trust them, I really do. But I'm worried about futures, you know, so we need to have something in writing that provides some guidance.
I don't know that, if I may, and I'm not sure that that would need a motion. I mean, we'll go back to the drawing board with it.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, I
That's
don't know that it would need a motion. This, if we were eliminating it, that would take care of that. But we don't, since we don't have an amendment for it right now,
Right,
then that would be
you're
going
right.
with the next agenda item
You're right.
for the policy.
Okay, very good. Well, Lisa, I just want to congratulate you on doing a typically good job of going through the policy review in a very professional, detailed way. And thank you. I think now we'll move on to board committee updates.
Do we want to do anything with DIH?
GIH, okay.
Can we add that for first reading? Again, Jeffrey Ranch currently does not have anything like this. And it's short and to the point.
Well, it's the first reading. I'd like to review it.
Right, for first reading. So we're good to keep it on there for a second reading next time?
Carrie, can I ask you a question? I'm sure you haven't had a chance to look at this, but I'm just wondering if this in any way, I know that we have had to rewrite some of our policies to recently purchasing policies and so on. So I just want to make sure that you have a chance to look at this and make sure that it's in line with our other policies related to your office.
I glanced at it briefly during this meeting, but I haven't really had a chance to read it thoroughly, so.
Okay.
I'll take a look at it and I can let Ruben know, but I didn't see anything that stood out when I looked at it quickly.
Now, before we leave, I would like to say that Lisa and Juno put a lot of hard work into this policy work. So, they're doing a great job.
That's obvious. And
We should reward them with some pizza.
Hey,
don't.
Lisa and I,
Many districts, the policy committee gets more money than nearly everybody else in their school board committee with special stipends just for the policy committee.
I can understand why.
Oh, yeah.
Special stipends for the policy committee. Things are getting interesting here.
Mhm.
All right, there's a lot of, yeah. All right, so let's move on to board committee updates. Can we do that? Are we ready for that? It's been 3 weeks since last we met. If anybody has an update, the committee update, would they please,
I would like to say kudos, and thank you for the recognition. Getting the input from staff and families this summer for the policies before you and that we just did was absolutely extraordinary. That we weren't working in a vacuum to do this. There's some really powerful language here and stories behind it. And that was, so thank you for all the admin and parents and stuff who came forward and helped us move these forward. They're powerful things.
Finance committee is meeting this week,
next week,
this week,
this week.
this
Okay.
Thursday.
This Thursday.
And I really don't have any agenda items yet, so I'm gonna do a call for agenda items tomorrow, but I'm not sure we have any yet.
Okay,
We gotta do the budget schedule.
I think I've got one for you. I'll send it along by email.
I'm not talking about the town budget, I'm talking about the different department heads coming in and presenting to the finance committee. So that we can get a finance committee recommendation on the budget.
Particularly on purchases of pizza and.
No.
Sorry. All right. Wellness. And that,
We haven't had a meeting yet, but we're working on the meeting date.
working on scheduling.
Yes.
Christine, I do have a question for you. I know that I believe that materials have been purchased to build a raised bed. Is that your understanding?
You have more information than I do.
Well, that's only because I went out to the old greenhouses and saw a stack of wood there, so I
Nice.
assume
Okay.
that that's in progress. Okay. Okay, very good. Chris, do you have anything on communication?
Sure, I can give a quick update. We haven't met. We're working on scheduling the next meeting. I think we have a lot to talk about, but at that meeting, we'll talk about perhaps another survey to get sent out to really kind of reset what our goals as a committee are. I think a lot's changed in the last few years, so we're taking the decision to kind of step back, look at what our priorities are and set the goals for, short, medium and long term for the committee.
Good, thank you.
Just a
And,
quick update on that.
I'm sorry?
Just a quick update, we're
Okay.
lately based on survey responses to be meeting next Monday. I haven't heard from everybody yet, but I've heard from at least the majority, so that could happen as soon as next Monday.
Excellent, thank you, Jim. I'm not even gonna name them if you don't.
Goals, it hasn't set a meeting yet.
Okay, okay. Facilities met today and Christine and Christopher were up there. And of course was led by Sandra. And Sandra, thank you for hanging in here with us all this time. We talked a good bit about the HVAC project, which is getting close to wrapping up. There are some things that need to be done. Rain has slowed down a few things. The switch gear will not be changed out until April because it's going to take a week to do that. It's a major upgrade to the electrical panel. Going to involve disrupting the electricity. So that will be the last thing to be done, but the balancing work is going on. We've had some really good results in some major portions of our buildings. There are have been a few hot spots, but many of them have been addressed. Masonry work to close in the outsides of the building where unit ventilators were taken out was scheduled actually to start today, but it will probably happen later in the week as it dries out a little bit. And Chris, anything that jumps out at you from those meetings that you'd like to mention or from today's meeting? It's okay,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of work that's been happening, and I was very impressed with the presentation from Leland on the HVAC system. I learned a lot. I always learn a lot. It's so cool. I really appreciate the time that he takes to explain things to a novice. So that hopefully I can explain if anyone has any questions to me. And I wanted to comment on how we have a non-public session in a room where we're usually struggling to hear because of the fan, the room unit ventilator. And we did not have that problem tonight for the first time, and the room is very comfortable. I hear this from the kids at JGS that the rooms are comfortable. My teenagers at Conant talk about maybe it's a little too cool, but I frankly appreciate that we now have teenagers who are covering up a little bit more. Not a bad plan. And so all in all, I felt like a lot of work has happened and is still but and now it's on the punch list level. That's fantastic.
And we had that heat. Well, I
Yeah.
call it a heat wave, where a lot of schools were indicating that things were uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And
That's great.
overall, we were in a comfortable space.
Yeah.
There were spots, as you said, at that beginning of the year, but even in our most, our hottest spots and like, third floor type of, it was generally, very, comfortable.
It's better.
Awesome.
Chris, did you have anything?
Yeah, just definitely appreciated the detail that Leland went through, and it seems, right, that there's been some significant improvements in the heating and cooling, so how comfortable, right, our staff and students are. So I think that's great. And I think the level of commitment that they're showing to kind of refining that, I hope that's really there. I have no reason to doubt that it isn't, but I'm hoping that, we really get everything that we expect out of the system, plus energy savings. I think that's an important part of this. A lot of times people see us possibly, spending money to upgrade our systems. We not only get the benefit of it, but we get the efficiency that comes with replacing things that are 25, 30 years old, right? So when you hear him describe in detail these things, it's about, it's not a system that's like on or off. It's constantly, it has smart controls that optimize each region for both comfort and energy savings. I think that's something that we should be looking for in all of our kind of investments going forward, right? And I definitely do appreciate the, and you've seen the benefit of the work on the flooring and the paint, right? I think, keeping this environment, refreshed as much as possible for these older schools is a priority. So that's why, getting back to our discussion earlier, I think when we're talking about possibly taking advantage of some of this, unanticipated funding, I think that's an appropriate use based on what I've seen, here in the schools. It's something we can act on immediately and, just kind of continue the work. And so it's been good work there. And I just, looking forward to seeing what we have in our future as far as the next items to address. I don't think there's anything necessarily, any huge projects looming, but it'll be important for us to understand that kind of like, 5 and 10 year plan for the district as best we can.
One thing I did want to mention is that Sandra informed us that the purchase order with Gale Associates has been completed. They're the ones who will be doing a evaluation of our campuses, looking at the lower field, the one between the high school and the track, but also looking at all 4 of the campuses, looking at the Ridge Memorial Field and JGS as well, and just evaluating what can be done to make improvements, what those improvements might cost, and what needs immediate attention. And Sandra, is there anything that we missed that you feel?
No, I think you guys covered it.
Okay. Great. All right, thank you. So then, I think that covers board committee updates for the moment. Yes.
Education committee met. I don't know if somebody wants to discuss that or not. I feel like education committee met.
Oh,
I don't know if one of the board members wants to talk about that at all. If not, I'm happy to do a quick summary.
okay. Is there anybody who was at the education committee meeting?
Yes, we talked about the opening of school and what was going smoothly and what wasn't going smoothly. And that's where I ask each principal about staff morale and so forth. And we're making a lot of progress. If you want to add some details, go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so each principal had a chance to come. Well, it was more than the principals. The entire elementary administrative team was here. It was David and Kim Baker, Jen Horn from Student Services was here. Each group did a presentation on how things have kind of unfolded through the start of the school year, things that were worked on over the summer, direction for the rest of the year, staff morale was talked about, learner goals, things like that. The 6th grade trip was talked about. So there was a lot of really great content. I'm working on getting that uploaded to YouTube. That'll include all the presentations that were given. It was one of our longer education committee meetings in a while, but it was really kind of jam-packed with a lot of really great information.
Nikki Fraley had brought the therapy dog that they have over at RMS actually in with her, so we got to, see how, calm and therapeutic that dog can be kind of in action, I guess. So there was just a lot of really great information just in general, so I'm happy to share that out in a couple days when we get that up along with all the presentations, so.
All right, great. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, Charlie. How about public comments? Could you open that up for us? Yes.
All right, so we're back down to just the digital audience. I'll just explain that piece. First and last name, town of residence. If you'd like to be addressed, please use the hand raise feature and we can address you in that way. Just to give the board information prior to this, there was a person on that had their hand raised at one point, and I tried to reach out to them via chat just to let them know that there was a second opportunity to make a public comment later in the meeting, and they've left before getting that chance. So if you do hear from somebody saying, hey, I tried to speak and I couldn't, they just kind of left before they really.
Okay, we'll try to explain it. Understand it. I know that's hard if you're a member of the public and something comes up with you. It's on your mind at that moment. So we'll let you leave that open for a few minutes if anybody does pop on. But why don't we talk a little bit about board matters in the meantime? And there's two items on here that I've asked to be placed on here. One of them, school nutrition. Basically, I was contacted by someone from the class of '73 who said that they were holding their 50th reunion and that they had, as a class, decided to make some contributions to address nutrition needs here at Conant Middle High School. Now, since then, we've talked about, well, it's not just the middle high school here, 2 elementary schools as well. However, we know, because teachers tell us, that there are students who come in the morning sometimes without having had breakfast. And it might be that they just got up late, but it might also be that there's not food at home. And so what we tried to do, what many of our teachers have tried to do, is to keep some food in their desk or to. It's funny, we've had discussions today about buying food, right? I think a lot of our teachers have done that over the years, from what I've heard. But a number of years ago, a program was set up by a church in Rindge, the Congregational Church, called the Got Lunch Program. And I know this as a Rotary member because our Rotary helped to fund the infrastructure that they needed to get started. And so this gentleman from the class of '73, Dave Griffin, he sort of piqued our curiosity. We went back to look at how the Got Lunch program was doing. There is someone here at the school, a guidance counselor, who is working with the program, and it's actually been doing quite a bit. It's been pretty active. They do provide food for people to bring home over the weekend, on the theory that if they don't have breakfast or lunch during the week, that they may not have it on Saturday or Sunday either. So if people feel that will help them, they're eligible to take some food with them. There is the program has worked, from what we understand, during the summer as well.
Very active.
We've gone through a 2-year period during which the government, the federal government, was providing quite a bit of food. But to the extent that that came directly to the schools, that stopped last year sometime. So in talking with the guidance department here, what we learned is that the need does continue. There are food products provided as well as some toiletry products, and there is still some unmet need. There are still some students, learners who come in, don't have money for lunch. They look like they could use lunch, and so although there are snack foods available, that's not the same as a lunch. And so one of the questions being asked is there some group or maybe a collection of groups or several groups that could collaborate to establish a fund to help pay for lunches for people who just, their account ran out of money and whatever. So I wanted to mention that because it is something that has come to the attention now of the Rotary and also the church, the Congregational Church is involved, but the class of 73 is involved, and so wanted to make sure people understood that this was being discussed, and don't know exactly what the outcome will be, but it's on the agenda.
Can I ask a question? What is our policy about in regards to students who have a negative balance, lunch balance? Do they still get lunch? Because that seems like that would be the need.
I've heard things as practice, but I don't know what the current practice is. And
Would like me to comment? We do have a policy on negative balance meal charges. However, it needs to be revised because it no longer meets the regulations. So that needs to be brought to the board to revise. So as it stands, the middle and high school students are not allowed to carry a negative balance. However, they are never, if they have a meal, that meal is never taken away from them. So the school district reimburses the food service program for those meals.
And if it's, and is that how the policy will be updated? You said that the policy needs to be revised or updated.
Yes, I will have to look specifically at what the restrictions and requirements are, but the intent is not to ever deny a meal to a student. However, there, you still want to do what you can to have those meals paid for as well. And the free and reduced applications are available to all parents, but some families are right on the borderline and it's still a struggle, and others may not apply for whatever reason.
Thank you.
Something else you want me to add, Charlie?
No, we've always had problems collecting overdue. What's that the problem?
Just out of curiosity, when you talk, what's the magnitude of that? Typically, like as you get towards like, what would be like a peak?
Well, pre-COVID, I would say it was maybe around 8,000 to 10,000. Last year, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it was significantly higher. We had to keep transferring money into that line.
I think it was around 50,000.
That sounds about right. It was
5,000 either way, but I'm pretty certain it was over
50,000 are meals that have been eaten but not paid for.
that the district
That we had to
funded
fund,
the
yeah.
program, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Again, the 2 years of
Mhm.
COVID and so forth and funding that way shifted I think how people budgeted, and so and expectations and a lot of things.
Mhm.
And of course, then the money was taken away, or the food, in a sense, the payment for that was taken away during a time of inflation. At the same time, tough for a lot of people.
This is like
stuff in the goals.
kind of related. I think I may have asked this before, but and I don't apologize if what gave an answer, but Like, what is the typical money received for school lunches, like per whatever time period you may know, whether it's a year, month, or like how much is paid for over the course of a typical week, month, year, whatever you know. You know, I mean, you may not know right now, just more of a question of curiosity.
Yeah, I'd rather
Yeah.
pull up the data than.
Yeah,
than try
understood,
and
understood.
Throw numbers out. I don't know that I feel confident in
Right.
doing that. And I'm hoping with the new food service program that we have better sales. Because we do have a new company this year. And the feedback that I've received to date has been very positive. So I'm hoping that will improve sales, which will increase our revenue. And I do know that there are students specifically at the high school who are going back and getting second and third meals, which we question it being an error for the first 2 days of August. Because you typically wouldn't see that number for a whole month, and they were legitimate purchases.
Yeah, nice.
So,
Could you try to email me that picture? Ruben?
Yeah, we should show, let me send it to you. real
Yeah.
fast. This is a picture of. We were going by the middle school cafeteria the other day, saw the food, like, oh. Take a picture of
There's
that,
like
so let
chicken
me
and
just,
rice bowl with kale and sweet potatoes. And then homemade pumpkin bread and corn on the cob and watermelon. That's what it was, right?
the fact that you remember that is, a little bit scary. So here we go. Let's see, it's going to, oh, your email?
Yeah, if you email it, I
Okay,
can put it
never
right up
mind.
on the screen.
As we get closer to budget season and warrant article season, we've talked a lot about helping
Yeah.
with the financial aspect of food.
That's why I'm asking those
Insecurity
sort of
here.
questions.
And that would be, that I would really like to know as we get closer to that, real hard numbers. Because I could see a warrant article. Yeah, I could kind of figure out a way. Will our district pay for this?
Yeah.
That's
Agreed, and those are the sort of things we should be focusing on
Right.
if we're hearing feedback through data, right? That we
exactly.
have students that can't pay for meals, you know, regardless of the reason. I think those are items that we should be looking for opportunities to address. And I haven't had dinner yet, so
Thanks a lot.
yeah, so yeah. Try to keep the pictures of food to a minimum.
But you know what? This is a picture of food.
Yeah, that's actual food, right?
Yeah.
It's all fresh
And the
food served
pictures
by
that
our,
kids were sending me last year.
Yeah.
Or the
Yeah,
color
that-
up in the
yeah,
left-hand corner.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, it's very appetizing,
Nice.
unfortunately.
And I remember when Ruben and I walked through the hallways, it was a couple of years ago, last year maybe. We were talking to students about food and you brought up like how everything was a shade of beige. And how like every student was like, yeah, I just eat the like chicken nuggets and the tater tots every single day, or I eat the chicken patty and the tater tots or the fries or whatever that combination of chicken and like potato was on that given day.
Yeah, but those are the reasons I asked the question, even like when I look at this additional, you know, possibility of receiving, you know, money from the state, how to best apply it. And I think we had discussed that sooner. I don't know what the ramifications are of that, or, you know, the legalities. I know there's complications of it, but to me, if we can like help feed kids with that,
And I confess, it's brilliant that they were able to combine French fries and salad in the same section. Is brilliant. Like those are sweet potato fries. They're French fries, but they're salad. That's brilliant.
Are you gonna get the cots out, John?
No, but I'm gonna very quickly mention after-school programming, because it's several people who I respect have continued to ask me about that. We did have an after-school program a number of years back. I think 4 or 5 years back, maybe it ended.
It's very popular.
Seven.
Oh, well, that's what you're talking about, because we boosted it through collaboration with community partner, but who has since now changed hands. And so, yeah, so we did have another one here. And then the Ringe has had an after-school program at their recreation department all along.
Right. Right. So I guess the question that is coming to me is what's the perception of the need? Is it something that would be nice, but it's not a high priority, or is it something that is a real perceived need?
It's a question when I saw that this was going to be up here. There's a needs assessment that we have to do for Title IV. And that would be a question that we would put on there. And Title IV is the grant that we use to pay for the Ferry Beach trip. We have this year's funding as well as next year's funding already, and could put that forward if that were shown to be a need, or which we would have to ask parents, staff, etc. Another thing is that's a topic on this birth through 8 group of a pillar of community schools. Has, I don't know if it's not a pillar, but I think it's part of it is after school programming. Similar to during school programming for young children, childcare in general is more and more families are either the single parent is having to work and provide, or if there are 2 parents, they're both working significantly or need to in order to provide. And so childcare is a need. And certainly with the most of us growing up, especially if you are part of Stranger Things in the 80s, right? It was not strange to actually be riding your bike around all hours of the day and going all over the place and being part of kind of the general, community of kids that you would just play all the time. That doesn't happen as much anymore. So creating those spaces, those safe spaces, is becoming more and more important to communities. So whether it's a school or whether it's a school in partnership with a recreation department in the town, whether it's a school in partnership with another nonprofit or even for-profit organizations in town, as we talked about earlier, as I mentioned, again, NPR, the Sentinel last week, I think it was, and then also, other articles in the Nation are saying this is a economic issue. It's not just about what we care about here, the children being taken care of and so forth, and growing up well and having opportunities. It's about actually families being able to make it and then contribute to the overall economic well-being of local communities as well as the state, as well as the country.
I know that in the Monadnock district, they just opened up the middle school one, but for their K-2, each of the 5 elementary schools, let's say 4 elementary schools, more than half to 2/3 of the students stay until a good 5 o'clock. That's how many kids are in their after school program. 50 is the minimum that they have right now. It's going up to 80 kids in the after school.
And Knox had a robust program for
They
a
put
long
a lot of
time.
money into
Yeah,
it. They have an exceptional program.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah.
That would be a good too.
So is it reasonable to say that it's something that you look into?
I think it's a topic that should continue to be on the radar.
Unfortunately, as a result of our decision to move forward with the special district meeting, there are some documents here for us to sign. Looks like we need 12 signatures.
I have another board matter before we.
Yes,
go
but just, I'll be sure to get it. So I just want to mention that because I know it's getting late. Everybody's looking forward to getting out of here. And I do have a question for Kara. Can we just sign one of each and then photocopy it?
No, I asked Gordon Graham before and he said we need to post originals.
Okay,
There's, I believe I printed out 6 total, so that's 12 signatures that you need here in total.
Right.
Each one is 2 pages. That's just making sure we have the post to have in the official record and so on.
So if anybody would like to start signing while we finish up our last board matter, please do. Lisa,
We haven't talked much about the New Hampshire School Board Association Delegate Assembly coming up. I would kind of like to be the delegate, the voting delegate, if nobody is doing that. I don't know if that's a given that you do it, or we've never talked about like the politics, the wider New Hampshire politics. But there are some pieces on the agenda that I'm interested in, and I have the time available, so I'd love to be the voting delegate if nobody else has signed up for it.
okay, the only other person who's mentioned is Chris, and I don't know how you.
I'd be happy to have you do that. I was interested, but I certainly am also gonna maybe take advantage of this law conference, so.
Okay.
I think you would be a great person for that, and I'd
Well,
like to
thank you.
provide some input. I've looked at some of the things and I think you'd be a great representative.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good. Good, yeah, thanks for doing that. Okay, and other than signing the document, which Ruben has kindly laid out for us, thank you, Ruben, make it a little bit easier. We just need a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Christine. Roll call vote to see who's in favor. Daisy?
Aye.
Thank you, Daisy. Chris?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Christine
Aye.
and Lisa. Okay, and I vote aye. And we're adjourned.